Amorim has a very difficult job as Manchester United manager because some of the players at Manchester United are just not good enough. Some of the players are decent players but unable to match the physical demands. But what Ruben Amorim does have at his disposal is a very good Carrington full of academy gems. And there are some players in the academy that profile-wise could suit Amorim Ball. And some of them may need a year or two to develop physically. There's one or two that could come through in the next year. And Ruben Amorim, I think, is more than willing to dive into the academy, more than willing to dive into Carrington, reportedly. And a couple of youth players have caught his eye and could be getting some minutes if the first team has continued to underperform. So we're going to talk about Amorim's youth plans and what players have impressed him. We're going to talk about shock new goalkeeper signing. Bayendir wants exit because he's not getting minutes. He's not happy at United, which is maybe triggering this shock new goalkeeper signing. We'll talk about my starting 11 for Manchester United versus Man City and other stories. Interestingly, haven't actually included it in the video, but apparently Manchester City reached out to bring Paul Pogba in January, but Paul Pogba said no because of his loyalties to United and stuff as well. But I don't know the credibility in that. But if you didn't know, Ruben Amorim was in attendance earlier today at Manchester United's under-21s game. Now, interestingly, Manchester United are trying to set up their under-21s in a 3-4-3 system now, integrate some of Amorim's principles to get the players ready to transition over Amorim Ball. Amorim was there, as was Jason Wilcox, Darren Fletcher, and head of academy Nick Cox. Now, in that game, there was a couple of players that stood out. Myself, I only watched the highlights of the game and the goals, and I'd have to say Morehouse's goal at the end. Wow. But Manchester United beat Southampton 5-1. Fantastic performance from what I saw in the highlights. We looked absolutely fantastic. And Dan Gore was absolutely balling out in front of Ruben Amorim. Academy Scoop that watched the full match said this. 5-1, probably the best performance I've seen from the under-21s in a couple of seasons. The intensity and commitment to the press was fantastic. We squeezed Southampton out of the game and forced them to work with scraps. Dan Gore and Jack Morehouse ran the show in the middle of the park, the latter of which is my player of the match today, while Tyler Fletcher was also bright as well. Ruben Amorim, who watched from the touchline, will sure have been impressed, said Academy Scoop. He said what he thought was interesting was the intensity. You know, Ruben Amorim being the new head coach of United demands intensity from the players, which he isn't quite getting. And then when he made the Mount and Hoyland subs the other day against Victoria Pleasant, they brought a bit of intensity, and you can see how important it is for Ruben Amorim's system. Now, Jack Morehouse is a really good midfielder, but he's not had a lot of minutes because of injuries and issues and struggles lately. But when it comes to carrying the ball and driving forward, if you look at the goal right at the end, unbelievable work. And of course, Dan Gore, an absolute excellent player that again has had issues with injuries. We speak about Gore, Gore and Maino being the three standout players from our 2022 Youth Cup win, was it? Or was it 2021? I think it was 2022. Or maybe it was 2021. I can't remember. And, you know, they were the standout players. And then Dan Gore just hasn't quite cemented himself like Maino and Garnacho has, and I think that's because of injuries. He went to Port Vale on loan a year ago, and he didn't really play. You know, Tenal gave him some minutes this time last year, 10 minutes off the bench here and there. But I'm sure he's someone that potentially, because he was involved in Ruud van Nistelrooy's matchday squad and stuff, he's one that potentially could see minutes. Obviously, Gobbel Kokoni is the one that we know that Ruben Amorim likes the most and is calling up into matchday squads. Ruben Amorim is reportedly impressed by several Manchester United academy players. If he deems them physically ready, he's unafraid to give them opportunities in the place of underperforming first-team players. Amorim is particularly fond of Gobbel Kokoni, whose profile is seen as a perfect fit for his style of play. Obi Martin, Seko Kone are players he wants to observe further, and he was highly impressed by Dan Gore and Morehouse while watching Manchester United academy in action, as mentioned earlier. But interestingly, with Amorim, we look at Gobbel Kokone, 6'4", 6'5", left centre back, physical monster. That is what Amorim will want to add to the system. That is why we're looking at Braithwaite. Seko Kone is physically, technically good. That's something we want long term. And Obi Martin's obviously a physical player that runs in behind. That could potentially, probably needs a year or two to develop, but he's absolutely clinical and lethal. There's other players like Harry Amas that Ruben Amorim likes, but there's question marks around Ruben Amorim, and not just him, but those inside Man United if he's physically ready. There's a few question marks around Harry Amas being physically ready. Bentito Mantato is someone that could be called upon according to some rumours. Ibrahimov, Shea Lacey have also impressed as well. There's quite a few players in there. Bean Sheary, Wheatley, among many names. But let's continue on into the next story, because obviously we've been speaking a lot about Manchester United signing Diego Leon, a young left-back, Seko Kone, James Overeem, been signing these young players from all over the world. Seko Kone and Diego Leon have cost us 2 or 3 million. Players that are coming in. Obviously, Diego Leon will join United in July 2025. Will probably go on pre-season with us when he's 18. He will continue staying out in South America, and he's a great young left-back. Now, Manchester United want to obviously look through the youth market more. We're looking at Naipan, we're looking at Chris Rigg, but we're also looking more into the South American market. And it was said that Manchester United are interested in Brazilian and Botafogo keeper John Victor to give competition to Andre Onana. Now, this comes as no surprise, as about 2 weeks ago, these were reports that came out. Manchester United are in the market for a new third choice goalkeeper, or potentially both a new number 2 and new number 3 if Bayindir leaves. There's expectation that Alte Bayindir could leave the club in one of the next 2 windows, as he's simply too good to be number 2 but behind Onana and currently has no prospects of regular playing time. We know that Bayindir isn't getting playing time. He wants playing time. He apparently has pushed to leave in January and sort of asked to leave the club. I think we'll just buy an old English keeper to replace Heaton, but we could be looking at the Brazilian goalkeeper to replace Bayindir. And I think we need someone that is going to give Onana a bit more competition because, we used to have Sergio Romero as our backup keeper that was really good and reliable when called upon. Bayindir, when we've called upon him, hasn't really impressed me like Sergio Romero has. So I think, we definitely need someone that's really, really going to push Andre Onana a bit more because I think he's been very good. And if you'd have said to me a week ago what my thought on Andre Onana was, I'd say he's been one of our best players this season. And then in the last 2 games versus Forest, I'm pleased and he's made 2 mistakes. But if you said this to me 8 days ago, we'd all be saying how good Andre Onana's been this season. But the mistakes do creep back in. Now, of course, I will start Onana versus Manchester City. And this is my lineup versus Manchester City, by the way. I've got Onana in goal. I've gone Euro right centre-back, De Ligt central centre-back, and Leach left centre-back. Part of me did think about putting Maguire central centre-back because Maguire does suit Amorim's system to a T in terms of the central centre-back role. A part of me did think of putting Maguire there because De Ligt hasn't had a rest in ages. I think Euro will be fresh, and I think Euro's physicality and legs and how well he did against Arsenal, I think he'll deal with City well. And then Leach, kind of, you have to because how good he is on the ball. And I think you could argue Maguire De Ligt for central centre-back. Now, I've really liked Mazraoui at right centre-back, particularly with Ahmad at right wing-back because he gives Ahmad a bit more freedom to push forward. But I'm going to trust Euro at right centre-back and have Mazraoui left wing-back. My left wing-back options are Delo, and then we swap Mazraoui and Euro over. Or I could go with Anthony, but I think that's too much of a risk for a Manchester City game. So this would be my lineup. I think Ugarte, Maino, a lot of people would agree on that. You could ask for Ugarte and Bruno in the pivot, maybe, if we wanted maybe a Garnacho or Rashford up top in the front line just for pace to run in behind transition. But I think everyone could agree this is probably Man United's strongest lineup. You could argue Ahmad in the 10, Bruno dropping deeper next to Ugarte. You could argue that. I think it's very obvious we need a left wing back because Mazraoui's been excellent at right centre back. But I think, left wing back's the one area that's definitely up for debate. But that would be my starting 11 ahead of the Manchester derby. Guys, do let me know your starting 11 down below. But it's one of those games, the Manchester derby. But I'm going to be honest with you. It's like, because Manchester City are so bad at the moment, I almost feel there's that more pressure to win, because if we don't win, it's just going to feel worse and worse because we can't beat this Man City side that's crap. I really want to win tomorrow. I think a win would be so important for Ruben Amorim. Get points up on the table as well, because look, I know we're probably going to finish 12th or 13th this season, but if we can get the 3 points, and catch up with the others, we have to. We're 12th or 13th now. We have to catch up. We have to be within that top 8, realistically, before the end of the season. I know that it's a crap season. I know we sort of wrote off the season because Ruben Amorim's in, but if we don't finish in the top 8, it is an absolute disgrace. And it's not on Ruben Amorim. It is obviously on the players. But if we finish lower than we did last season with the investment that's gone in, it is worrying. But I also understand that it's a new manager, and there's not loads he can do until he gets the players in. But I want to look at Kirkes. I want to look at Robinson. I want to look at Dorgo, potential players out there. Nori's not happy at all, so he got sent off. Robinson was excellent versus for Fulham versus Liverpool. I think we need to go out there and get a left back. And then if we can, bring in an athletic midfielder. But yeah, listen, people, thank you for watching today's video. See you next time. Bye.